Hi, everyone. Pastor Don Smith here. Welcome to the Talk About It podcast, where we take relevant topics with a biblical point of view and we talk about it. You know you want to, and so do I. Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everyone. Pastor Don here. I am so glad that you're here today, and I'm your host for Talk About It. But if you're a long-time listener, you know that. If you're a first-time listener, thank you so much for popping in on the podcast, and we hope that you are doing well. Listen, and if you're a first-time listener, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just push pause on this. Go back and start Season 6, Episode 1, Marriage Math 1 + 1 = 1, and we will be here waiting for you when you get back, because today's episode is just a continuation of that conversation we were having in last week's episode. Now, if you're a long-time listener, I thank you so much for who you are, what you're doing. Thank you for your support. Mentioning your support, thank you so much. Now we've got some people who are supporting the podcast on a monthly basis. That is helping us so much. Thank you for doing that. Did you know you could do that just in your show notes? Push that more button and you'll see down at the bottom of it, support the show. You can do that. Also, you can send us a text right there. It says in your show notes, send a text to the podcast, and you can just push that and send us a text. You can email the podcast. Did you know that? Did you know that Talk About It has an email? That's right. talkaboutitpd@gmail.com. You can email us right there. Thank you. No matter how you touch base with us, I want to thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. For those of you who are supporting on a monthly basis, listen, you can do it from $3 all the way up to however much you want per month. It's been so good. You know, what I do with that money is I use it for the mission trips that God sends me on to train leaders. And so that is an incredible partnership right there. And I thank you so much for all of you guys who are doing it so far. You know who you are. I just want to say thank you. For all of you who are thinking about it, praying about it, I want to thank you for even considering it. Wow, what an honor it is. Listen, here we go. This is Season 6, Episode 2 on Talk About It. And this season, we are talking about marriage. Now, last week, I opened up this whole conversation with the idea of marriage math, God's math, 1 + 1 = 1. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Many of you have given me some feedback, and that was super, super good. Today, what I want to do on the podcast is I want to get right into it here, and I just want to continue our conversation, because what we did is we left off with this idea, right, that there's no shortcut to growth in marriage. Okay, you cannot skip out on maturity by marrying into it. Y'all remember that? Do you remember that? If you're a new-time listener, that's what we're talking about. And you can't skip out on maturity by marrying into it. In other words, marriage isn't an escape from responsibility. It's not escape from maturity. It's not escape from trouble. I know a lot of people who have gotten married because they're trying to escape a bad family life and those type of things. Let me tell you, it never works, and we're going to talk about that as we go along in this season. But see, what we need to do is we need to understand it was God's idea for us to complement each other, not, everybody say not complete each other. And that's where we left off in our conversation last week. It was so good, right? So you're saying, all right, Pastor Don, if marriage is for adults, what are the requirements of adulthood? You see, that's a great question, and I'm so glad that you asked it today here on Talk About It, because that's what I want to do today is I want to talk about the requirements for adulthood, because I don't think we talk about that enough. We just think that people pass a certain age and now they're an adult, and then we wonder why their life is plagued by immaturity, especially in marriage. And now you can take this from someone who's done 25 plus years of crisis marriage counseling. Okay? And most of the time, the problem in marriage is because someone in the marriage wants to be served instead of serve. And that is an equation to immaturity. Somehow we've got to overcome that. And most of the time, when I can find out where that's at with a couple who's struggling, we can change the atmosphere of the marriage. And listen, you can have the spouse you want with the spouse you're married to. You just cannot be married like you were yesterday. And you got to understand that marriage is for adults. So, Pastor Don, what's the requirement? All right, great. Let's do that. Well, number one, you got to take responsibility. You got to take responsibility for you. Now, your marriage will stagnate to the degree that you disown your part and blame your spouse for what is yours to deal with. Let me say it again. Your marriage is going to stagnate to the degree that you disown your part and are just interested in blaming your spouse for what is yours to deal with. Listen, if you don't take responsibility for how you feel, you're going to blame your spouse for feeling unhappy. How many divorces happen because we depend on someone else for happiness? Marriage was not designed to make you happy. Marriage was designed to make you holy. Hello, somebody. Happiness is a result of right decisions. Oh, I'm going to help y'all this season. You have no idea. See, one of the greatest gifts you can give your spouse is your personal responsibility. Did you hear me? One of the greatest gifts you can give your spouse is being a person who's willing to take care of their personal responsibilities. And so you got to take on who you are. You got to take on everything that requires. That's a great gift to your spouse. The second thing I need you to do is I need you to value your personal responsibility and your spouse's personal responsibility. Now, this goes hand in hand with the first part, take responsibility, but valuing responsibility and taking responsibility usually is the bridge of where it happens. Okay? When you only live for your spouse, what you do is you push aside your personal person, and the treasures inside of you go to waste. Oh, Pastor Don, I thought I'm supposed to live for my spouse. You are. Right? But watch what happens when you push aside your personal person and the treasures inside of you. What happens is they go to waste. Right? See, those treasures are a living part of who you are, and they continue to speak to you in the form of discontentment if you push them to the side. You cannot ignore the treasures of your soul because God has placed them in you. And sooner or later, brushing them aside is going to catch up with you. Trust me, I've seen it over and over and over again. And so valuing and requiring your spouse to be personally responsible allows each one of you to be an adult. Let me give you an illustration. All right, let me just help you because I know some of you are like, okay, I want to know what this really means. Let me just give you a very simple illustration. Are you ready? All right, here we go. If I wait to make a decision until after I talk to my wife, Lisa, does that mean I can't think on my own? Does it mean she's in charge? No, it means I value her treasures. I place such a high value on what she thinks that I don't want to miss out on her perspective. You see, not wanting to miss out is a good way of thinking of value and treasure in your spouse's soul. God has given you each one another. In other words, God has given each other to know and to share. Why would you want to miss out on such a powerful gift from God? Valuing each other as a treasure is what mature people do and is part of being a complete person. It also values and completes the other person. What it says is, I know you're a person too, and I'm interested in the person that you are. Wow. And so taking responsibility is very important. Valuing your personal responsibility and your spouse's personal responsibility is a part of it. But understand the concept of this. You are not me. Understand this concept, okay? Lisa is not me. Dawn is not Lisa. We are not extensions of each other. We are individuals. Oh, let me say that again. Lisa is not an extension of Dawn. And if you go to Lisa expecting her to be an extension of me, you're going to be disappointed. And if you come to me expecting me to be an extension of Lisa, you're going to be disappointed. And by requiring or believing that should be so in each other, no wonder you're disappointed. See, by believing that your spouse is an extension of you is to live as if the world revolves around you. See, we got to see our spouse as a person, not an object. Your spouse has their own feelings. Your spouse has their own needs. They don't exist just to meet your needs. Listen, children live that way. That's the expectations of children, of immature people, that other people live to meet their needs. If you view your spouse in the terms of how they affect you, you're going to be in big trouble. And that's called self-centeredness in the world that I come from. What you've done is you've reduced your spouse to an object to meet your needs. And you no longer see them as the individual person God created them to be. When we see people for less than who they are, love will always break down. Let me say it again. When we see people for less than who they are, love will always break down. And so we've got to have some empathy. Why? Because empathy is the bedrock of intimacy. When I don't empathize with Lisa, I always take her experiences as meaning something about me. See, in other words, I react to her feelings by thinking of myself and not her. Let me give you an illustration. Is that okay? Here we go. We're just talking about it, okay? Let me just put this out here in plain terms, all right? So I'm going to just give you one of mine and Lisa's conversations. Are you ready? So Lisa says to Dawn, she says to me, I don't feel close to you lately. And I say to her, what do you mean? And she says, well, I just feel disconnected. And I say, great, just great. All I do is bust my butt for you, try to give you all of my time and energy apart from work, and you don't even appreciate it. Hello, somebody. You ever been there? You ever been on one side of those conversations, one side or the other? You see, what happens in that conversation is I made Lisa's feelings about me. I didn't empathize with her because I couldn't get past myself. So Lisa is stuck in her attempt to connect with me at a deep level. See, remember, 1 + 1 = 1. And what that means is we need to allow our spouse to have their own experiences without reacting with our own. That's called empathy. And that allows you to give each other the freedom to be different. You see, where good marriages differ from couples who have bad marriages is good marriage couples value each other's difference and they treat them with respect. You see, because two-ness exists, oneness can develop. When we don't allow each other to be different, what we do is we judge the other as bad for our differences. We see it as a lack of love. We'll feel that our spouse doesn't care about what's important to us. Listen to me talk about it. Differences are not bad. They're part of the stuff that love grows out of. Let me give you another illustration. Today's so full of illustrations, right? Think about the differences between you and your spouse. Differences are what you liked about that person at the beginning of the relationship and then what you fight about the rest of your lives. How did that happen? Why is that? Because differences allow us to enjoy something we don't possess. But they also threaten us if we haven't matured enough to be an adult. You see, to immature people, differences imply this: distance, a lack of love, abandonment, or rejection, or even differences challenge us to grow in ways that we don't want to. And see, it's under this threat love gets put on the back burner for self-protection. Oh, hello, somebody. And so we don't wind up respecting each other's freedoms. Oh, my. Oh, my. So what we've got to do is we've got to take responsibility. We've got to value your personal responsibility and your spouse's personal responsibility. And you've got to understand the concept that your spouse is not you. You are not me. And be okay with that. And then you've got to respect each other's freedom. Oh my. Now I know I'm going to step on some toes here, but it'll be okay because we're just having a conversation and you're going to get to think about this for a little bit and appreciate what Pastor Don's trying to tell you. Freedom is a prerequisite for love. Listen, if you have to control someone, it's not love. Control is slavery. Hello, somebody. Control is slavery. Are you with me? Do you understand what Pastor Don's trying to tell you? In other words, you gotta be okay with allowing your spouse to have freedom to have some space. Listen, when we marry a person to complete us, then it's difficult to understand why space is a good thing. We feel as if we aren't valuable to them if they need space. But when we're complete as a person, giving our spouse space doesn't affect our value. In other words, Proverbs chapter 31 actually teaches us this. If you read that in there, you'll notice there's something about both the spouses, not just the godly woman. In other words, they both have their own space without devaluing the other person. It shows us they are deeply connected. It shows us that 1 + 1 = 1. The problem is freedom is okay until it displeases us in some way. See, we've equated freedom as separation, but freedom doesn't mean separate. When we're apart, when my wife and I are apart, Lisa and I, let's say I go on a trip or she goes on a trip or she has a girls' weekend or I have a hunting trip or something where we've been apart for a few days. You know what happens? That time apart, it actually gives us experiences to share with one another, and that adds intimacy to our relationship. But be warned, if you're using your freedom as an escape from responsibility, then you've got issues. And don't blame your spouse when they resent the freedom that you want. That's not on them. Let me just tell you this. Freedom is the scariest of all human privileges. Sure it is. I get it. Adam and Eve used their freedom against each other, right? I don't have time for that today. But if we're smart enough, what we'll do is we'll notice the warning that Paul gives the Galatians in Galatians chapter 5. He says, "For you, brethren, have been called to liberty. Only do not use your liberty as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." What a great warning about freedom. See, the call to relationship with God and each other is a call to freedom. Somebody say amen. But that freedom must not be used to gratify self-centeredness. Not in marriage. You can't do that. If you do this, you're going to use your freedom at the expense of your marriage. If you struggle with how to balance this and how this would work, let me help you out. Let me just give you a little simple question. Ask yourself this: would I want to be treated with disregard? Or if you're a controlling spouse and you're trying to control your spouse's freedom with guilt and manipulation, then ask yourself this: would I like to be imprisoned? You see, the golden rule is the best defense against freedom becoming a license to self-centeredness. Oh my goodness, it's so good. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It produces in us, the golden rule, it produces in us a good fear of reality. The reality is humans were created and wired by God for two things. First, to separate from our parents and be independent from parental or guardian managing. That's in Galatians chapter 4. And the second thing that we were created by God for is freedom, to be free. That's in Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. To try to control our spouse makes you become two things that your spouse will always rebel against. First, it will make you a slave master, and everyone's going to rebel against a slave master. Second, it makes you a parent, and no one wants to marry a parent. See, a spouse was never intended by God to be either one of those things, not a slave master or a parent. If you are a controller, your spouse is always going to fight to be a free person. If you take that away, you take away the possibility of two becoming one. You've done away with the marriage math, the plan of God, 1 + 1 = 1. If you're a controller, you've made your spouse into a child and not an adult. Children are designed to be under parental management, not adults. Now remember, if you're using your freedom as an escape from responsibility, you are immature. And marriage is for adults, not for children. Somebody say amen. Sometimes, guys, the greatest gift you can give your marriage, the greatest gift you can give to your spouse, the easiest fix for marriage problems is just be an adult. Stop being a little child. Oh, see, some of y'all just turned the podcast off and will never listen to the rest of them, and that's why your marriage isn't going to get better. You're afraid of the truth. Listen, it's truth that sets us free. It's a gift, and we should embrace it. Rebelling against control is the motivation behind many affairs. Take it from me. I have sat in a room with couple after couple after couple who have gone through affairs, who've gone through infidelity, who've experienced this great pain. And why did it happen? Most of the time, it has nothing to do with sex. Most of the time, it has nothing to do with intimacy. Most of the time, the spouse who acts out in that moment is a spouse that's acting out in an affair to gain a sense of freedom. And it's intoxicating. Proverbs chapter 7 says, with her enticing speech, she caused him to yield. With her flattering lips, she seduced him. Immediately he went after her as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks. Till an arrow struck his liver, as a bird hastens to the snare. He did not know it would cost him his life. You see, what happens is it's intoxicating. Pervasive words are often words of freedom. Let me give you another illustration. Oh, if I was your husband, I wouldn't treat you that way. What? Oh, if I was your wife, you wouldn't have to worry about a thing. I'd always take care of your needs. What? Hello, somebody. Pervasive words are always words of freedom, and you need to pay attention to that. Don't be a nagging parent. Be a spouse. Hello, somebody. Be a husband. Be a wife. Give freedom and require responsible use of that freedom in the service of love. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's so good. Listen to me. This will change your marriage. I promise you. In an instant, this will change your marriage. Give freedom and require responsible use of that freedom in the service of love. And you know what? Inside of all of us, there's this deep, deep longing for our marriage to be holy and pure and amazing. Ask yourself right now, what brought you together to begin with as a husband and wife? I hope you took my challenge last week that you and your spouse are sitting down to listen to these podcasts together. Ask yourself right now. Look at each other and go, what brought you together to begin with? Maybe you're not with your spouse right now. Maybe you're driving. Maybe you're on your lunch break. Maybe you're on the treadmill. Maybe you're up early in the morning before your spouse is. It doesn't matter. Okay, you can still ask yourself this question. What brought you and your spouse together to begin with? Lots of things. Some healthy, some not so healthy. Somebody say amen. But one thing for sure, God did it. Hello, somebody. Because see, it's God who is the designer of relationship. In Genesis chapter 2, watch it, it's beautiful. We are designed with a longing for relationship, a longing not to go through life alone. And 1 + 1 = 1. It is the paradox that balances the truth in God's universe. Separateness and togetherness go hand in hand. Oh my goodness, you're gonna have to ponder that thought, especially as married people. Separateness and togetherness go hand in hand. If you are too separate, you have no relationship. Hello, somebody. If you have no separateness, you don't have two people involved. Oh my. What? Think about this. I want my spouse to be an individual, but I don't want to be so separate that both of us aren't involved. Listen, I know this is a lot today, and this conversation is going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, but it's time we have healthy conversation about marriage. Talk about it. Come on, crew. It's time we have some healthy, strong conversations about marriage, because life and death are really on the menu. Listen, you hear the stats just like I do, right? Half of all marriages end in divorce or what. I don't even know if it's a real stat, but I guarantee you right now in your mind, you can think of at least 2 or 3 couples who are married that aren't happy. You can probably think of a few couples that have wound up in divorce. Or maybe you yourself, you're listening to this podcast and you're listening because your marriage is struggling. I promise you, if you will hang in there, give me a few weeks on this podcast, and you and your spouse sit down and as adults with maturity, take the information that we're going to give you on this podcast. I promise you it will change your marriage. Not Pastor Don, but you will change your marriage because you will take the info that's given to you with application. Oh my goodness. This is such a great conversation, and I don't want to overwhelm you with too much, right? Maybe you want to listen to this podcast a couple of times this week and just sit down, right? Turn off reruns of Bonanza or I Love Lucy or whatever it is that you're watching to veg your mind, and decide to sit down and just listen to this information without argument, without debate, and just say, let's just listen to what he's got to say. And hopefully we can have a healthy conversation about it. This is an incredible conversation. I promise you, it's such a good topic. If marriage is for adults, what are the requirements of adulthood? Well, there you go. Now listen, okay, next week, we're going to talk about, is it possible for the two to become one with God's marriage math? Like if you are married and having it is like your marriage is like less than you thought it would be, what it's time to do then is to tell yourself, all right, it's time to be an adult. And I'm going to end the first part of this with that. Now, we've got a long way to go in this series, and I'm so glad that you're here, and it's so excited. But next week, you're not going to want to miss the episode, right? And I hope that you'll just download them. You can play them anywhere all the time. Play it once a day and listen to it. Just download it. Listen, I can promise you that right now, God is doing something in our lives. He's speaking to us. And this is such a relevant topic that there's not a person on planet Earth that isn't affected by marriage. And I hope that this conversation is going to be one that gives you an idea of excitement that our marriage can change. It can change. I want you to have hope, because all of this is hope-based, right? That we all want what you want. And that is that your marriage would be a blessing and that you would love it. And I know that's God's desire, that's your desire, but a lot of times we just don't know how to make it happen, right? And so that's what we're doing this season. Do me a favor. Will you do me a favor? Like, send this to 2 or 3 people that you know and go, you've got to listen to this. You've got to listen to this, because God is speaking. It's going to change your life. Will you do that for me? Will you like and subscribe and share this each and every week? Not because I need more listeners to the podcast, but because you and I both know that this kind of conversation is going to transform and change people's lives. And that's what we want to do here on Talk About It. We want to have a conversation that is relevant, that takes a biblical perspective, and we just want to talk about it. We're going to take this topic of marriage and see what God will do with it. I'm so excited about the direction we're going. I've got so much laid out for us. I hope that you'll pray for me as God continues to give me this and we lay it out for you. I hope you'll come back each and every week on the podcast here and listen. Listen, I love you. So thankful for all of you, longtime listeners, first-time listeners. You guys are the best. You're the best, and I love you, but I need you to remember, as much as I love you, Jesus loves you more. I'll see you next week.